Welcome to Messy Liberation, the podcast that dives deep into feminism, business, and personal growth. I'm Becky Mollenkamp.
And I'm Taina Brown. Get ready for another messy conversation through the eyes of two intersectional feminist coaches.
Let's get messy.
Hey friends, this is a quick note to say my apologies. This is Becky. As you may be able to tell, I am not feeling great. I wasn't when we recorded this episode. Things only got worse from there. I think I may finally be at the turning point of things starting to get better, but I just wanted to record a quick note to say I recognize this episode's late. Taina has been holding down the fort in so many ways inside of the Messy Liberation Coaches Circle. I wanted to say a special shout out to her and thank you to her for all that she's been doing. During this time of me being under the weather. It's been 2 weeks and I haven't been this sick in a long time. That's her messaging me now. I haven't been this sick in a long time and it's been hard for me to lean into people offering help. And I just want to say thank you to Taina and also to Faith Clark, who's my partner in Feminist Founders, both of whom have been remarkable as I've been going through this and struggling with my own need to produce and realize that, capitalism has told me that and it's not needed. I'm finally feeling a little better today, so I'm getting this episode up, edited, and out. And I thank you all for listening and for understanding about the tardiness.
Hi,
how are you? Are you recovered?
I have had a cold. The last time we talked, it was starting, and now a week later, it's still here, but it's ending. So It's been nasty, though. I went and got tested for all the stuff, COVID and flu and strep and RSV, whatever. They did a bunch of them, and it was all negative, which is actually kind of a bummer when you're sick because you're like, if it's strep, I can at least get medicine that will start the end of this.
Yeah.
When I'm sick, I'm always hoping it's something the antibiotics will actually help. Of course, I'm not taking antibiotics unless I actually need them because, antibiotic resistance. But sadly, it was not. And so it's just a cold, but it's like the nastiest cold I've had in a long time where I've been hardcore sick for a week. My ear feels like it's going to explode from the pressure. The doctor said my ears are both full of fluids from all the stuff in my head. Anyway, it's just, I'm not getting any sleep because I'm so uncomfortable. I look like dog poo, so I'm hoping people are listening this week.
You don't. FYI.
Oh, I'm gonna try not to cough while we're recording. I'll have to mute myself. So sorry, everyone. Anyway, how are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm a little bit tired, but
Is yours fanfic?
No, it's not because of fanfic.
Not writing fanfic?
No, I haven't written anything in a few weeks. I think I reached a point in my writing where I realized I need an additional character that I didn't originally plan for. And so now the idea of going back and doing all that work is overwhelming me.
Yeah.
I'll get to it eventually.
Have you run out of synonyms for throbbing member or anything?
I've only written 2 smutty scenes so far.
How did that feel to write those? Genuinely curious. Does it feel uncomfortable, like you're a voyeur in a way, even though you're the one writing it? You feel like, oh, I'm watching these people do it?
No, it doesn't feel uncomfortable. I think when you're writing, whether it's smut or not, right, you have to figure out blocking. If you've ever been on a play, you know what blocking is.
I mean, I know what it is, but no,
So for people who don't know what blocking is, it's basically how you arrange bodies in a space, right? And so when you're writing, you're having to think about those kinds of logistics. And so that gets more complicated the more the bodies move. And bodies move a lot during sex. So yeah,
they're meant to, unless you go starfish.
Yeah, unless you're just having really bad sex. But yeah, so it feels weird in the sense of being a voyeur or being anything like that. It feels weird in the sense of having to think about the mechanics of it.
You sound like actors when they talk about doing sex scenes and how it's not sexy because it's so rehearsed and this arm goes here and then we kiss for 10 seconds and then we whatever. So yeah, it almost takes some of the excitement out of it. For being as sex positive as I like to think I am, you have really helped me realize what a prude I actually am. So there's that. I tell you, because I'm listening to so many books. Hold on one second. I could tell you, I'm at 130 books for the year.
Wow.
Something like that. Now listen, I listen, to be fair, but I still think that personally.
That counts.
I say it counts. 130. I'm on my like 132nd or 133rd book
That's
reading.
amazing.
So I'm going through a lot. And, you know, a decent number of them include love/romance and sometimes sex. And some of them are a little more like trashy, but I shouldn't say that, whatever, more explicit than others. And I just can't tell you how deeply uncomfortable and awkward I get. I feel the same way when I'm watching TV. Like, okay, one of the things I want to talk about is I'm watching Love is Blind, Brazil, over 50. This is where Love is Blind is at now, right? So they have franchises in every country imaginable. I've watched Japan, Sweden, France,
Oh my gosh.
UK.
Where are you watching this?
Most of them are just available on Netflix, although I also have a VPN, so sometimes I'm logged in from other countries. Don't come after me, FCC or whoever arrests you for such things. So some of them may not be available in the US, but a lot of them are. I think they make most of them available in the US. And they probably have a bunch more that are not like here.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're doing, and they've done the ones Second Chance where they've even had people come back. But this one is over 50, which is sort of exciting and fun. And I've noticed even watching like, and it's not just them, it's not just because they're over 50, but as I'm watching it, I realize how anytime I'm watching people like kiss and make out, seriously, if it's more than a peck, I'm just like, get a room and go away. Like, I am not a voyeur in that way at all. I just am like, let me leave it to the imagination and to my own experience, but I'm not a big fan of looking at other people like making out or in movies and TV and stuff. I'm like, can we just imply the sex and move on? So yeah, I'm a big prude.
You like the closed door romance.
I do. But let me tell you, this over 50 Love is
Yeah.
Blind. Now it's dubbed, right? Because they speak Portuguese and I
Yeah.
do not. So it's dubbed. I do the dubbed instead of the captioning because this is supposed to be escapism. I don't want to also have to be reading a
Yeah.
novel
Yeah.
whilst doing. I just am like, just talk to me in English. So there's something that happens with dubbing that kind of creates like some distance that doesn't it doesn't feel
Mm-hmm.
as real. So there's that. But what I have discovered is women over 50 and men over 50, people over 50, and I am now one of them, barely, but I am. I'm just over 50. Are just like the older you get, Taina, the more you realize we're all just fucking kids. Like we never age. None of us do. We're all exactly like we were when we were 12 and 22 and 32. Like it's amazing to me watching these grown ass women act like children,
Yeah.
both in the like giddiness, which that part's fun and sweet. Like I love seeing a 70-year-old woman get excited about romance and stuff, but also the way they bicker at each other and gossip and get catty and like are fighting over their men and some of the stupid immature ways they act inside of these relationships with the men and the
Yeah.
men too, the way they're still fucking horn dogs. There's like these men, some of them are 67, 70 years old talking about how they want a hot piece of ass and like and just the ways they talk about sex and women and relationships, like it is wild to me. If you were not seeing them, you would believe you were listening to the same 20 somethings they have in the
Yeah.
regular thing.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing. So anyone who still thinks that there's some wiser elder out there, like there is some degree of becoming wiser in
Yeah.
certain ways, but the truth is,
They're still fuckboys.
well, and we're all like the core of who we are does not change. Who you come into this world as is who you leave this world as. I really think that like the core of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
We can learn in and grow and evolve and like there's things that change about us. We have more experiences. But the heart of it, we all still just think of ourselves as this like unaging forever kid kind of person. And so it's just so fun to watch and realize that and be experiencing it myself. But it's also really these Brazilian women. I'm really pleasantly surprised because when I think of Brazil, I think of like BBLs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And most of these women have had almost no work done that is visible. And it's also fine if you get work done, but they've got a lot of wrinkles and stuff. And I want more of that in my life. We've talked about it, about wanting more visual
Yeah.
representations of women aging naturally. And it's been lovely to be watching the show of these women who are 50 to 70 and all sorts of wrinkles. Now, a lot of them are still, you know, dyeing their hair and wearing a lot of
Yeah.
makeup. And like, there are things they're doing, but it's at least nice that they're not all nipped and tucked to the point of trying to look like they're still 30 in that way. And it's been a lot of fun. So I recommend for people to watch this ridiculous show if you're into ridiculous reality shows.
That's so funny. I've never really gotten into reality TV like that. I think my venture into reality TV
I know,
really,
Clear Love.
well, just the one season. There's a new season out, and
I've watched it.
I refuse. I'm just like, I just can't. Like the first season just felt very traumatic. And so I was like, I can't watch this again. But no, like my deepest venture into reality TV is like Food Network, HGTV, the
That stuff's so
classic,
different,
like the
yeah.
old school kind of reality TV, right? I still remember TLC when they
Mhm.
used to show like operations and stuff and like
I
medical.
remember the original House Hunters, where they would show you the entire process. So it wasn't just, "Here's 3 houses, choose one," right? It was they would show you, "Oh my god, they're on house 40, they're on house 70," like, they went through
Wow.
and so they would just show glimpses into that whole process. It was a very different show back in the very beginning, and they had that one woman who was actually not just a voice, but seen on screen. Suzanne or something, whatever her name is. So yeah, like I've been a long time reality show person as well. And the truth is I love the Love is Blind stuff. For some reason that one I really enjoy, even though I've read lots of stories about how toxic the environment is for participants and like I get it. I also though really just love British reality shows because I think they're more like what you're talking about. At least most of the ones I watch. I don't watch like Love Island, but like the British Bake Off and those
Hmm.
kinds of things. They're like it's more like comfort food of reality shows
Yeah.
versus,
Yeah.
like, intense American, "I gotta win" kind of
Yeah.
thing.
The competitive
Yeah.
like stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Like even a lot of the like primetime game shows that are like on a lot of networks
Oh, and they're too
these
much?
days. There's so many, and I'm just like, I can't watch this. Like, it
Why don't
feels very, what's the word I'm looking for? It feels surreal. Feels like I'm in a dystopian
I
movie when
think
I
they've
watch
all
shit
been
like that.
influenced by South Korea and Japan and, like, because if you've ever seen any of from 20 years ago, 30 years
Yeah,
ago,
yeah.
Japanese reality or, like, competition
Game
shows,
shows. Yeah,
they were intense, physical, lights, action, like, just like this
yeah,
sensory overwhelm, and I
yeah,
feel like the US has been going that way where I think a lot of our stuff maybe Squid Games is part of the reason for that, but, like, I feel like a lot of our that kind of stuff has gone that direction of more like what Japanese I don't know if they're still that way, but I know it's what Japanese game shows used to be like in the probably 20 years ago. And it does feel like that, and to me, it's all very, like, it's sensory overwhelm. I think that's
yeah.
why I love British TV so much, and it's the bulk of what I watch is British television. 'Cause it is just everything about
Calming.
most British shows is yeah, like, even the killer shows, they still bring, like, this like, there's the pacing is slow.
Yeah, the
There's
aesthetic is like
yeah, it's
really like
moody and
pastel or like soft.
soft and
The
or, like,
sounds
even
are really, yeah,
dark, but, like you're sitting by the ocean. Like, everything
yeah,
just feels very, like, moody and I would describe it as autumn. Like, I think everything I watch that feels British feels more autumn, where I feel like everything American feels summer, and I hate summer, and so that's probably why I'm like, I just don't love American shows because it all feels like, "Oh my god, we're on break, people. Let's go
yeah,
fucking crazy."
yeah,
And I'm like, "No, no. Can we get back to the part where we're putting on our cozy sweaters?" Which, by the way, I'm wearing a sweatshirt today with shorts because it's just that weather where I can finally like I can't wear pants and a sweatshirt yet, but I can at least put on my sweatshirt
yeah,
with my shorts and feel like cozy. That like my vibe is I am all about the autumn vibes.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
am too. I am too. It's when I feel the most creative, the most clear-headed, the most like inspired.
Me
Like
too.
everything just feels like fresh.
Have you looked at your natal chart from, what's it called? The stars, the skies. Your astrological
Astrology.
yeah, your astrology natal chart?
I mean, I have it. I have the Chani app on my phone. I
You
don't
should
look at it
open it up and
often, but
look because I'm curious. So I discovered Babs Chung, and I'll make sure we put her in the show notes, has we did a thing last year or the year before. I guess I don't know. Time is what is time? Where we looked at your chart and figured out when your astrological new year is based on your planets and everything. And my astrological new year is in Scorpio season, which is like what we're either in or entering, like September or October. Like,
we
I
just
am right now entering my Scorpios, my new year, and I have all the stuff you're talking about. Like, for me, it all feels new and exciting and invigorating. So if someone has, like I got mine through she recommends Astro Dienst, ASTRODIENST. I don't think I can share my screen on here.
Okay.
And if you look at your chart, it's like a circle, and then there's all these little pie wedges inside, and there's 12 of them, right? And they represent basically 12 months well, the 12 astrological signs, right? And if you find the one that says AC, like over on the side, there's MC, IC, DC, AC. AC is where 12 and 1, your 12th house meets your first house. And that's the last astrological sign of a year, and then the new astrological sign, like the first astrological sign. So along the side, you can see which season it falls in, and mine is in the like Scorpio thing. Anyway, she can help you pinpoint it down to the exact day.
Yeah. Yeah.
People could reach out to her if you want to have one of those kind of readings with her.
Yeah.
But it was so eye-opening to discover, like, because I feel the same way. And I'm always like, by the time people are talking New Year and new year, new plans, all that, I'm like, I've already done all that. Like, I was doing that in October. I'm like already well into implementing by the new year. And so it's just, and I think that's why for me, summer is like my winter, right? Like
Yeah.
that is the
Yeah.
end of my year. That's when I'm in that, like, I just want to hole up, close down, check out sort of space. So I wonder if you might have a similar chart, because if you feel that same
So
energy.
I think so. I was talking with Krishna about that a few months ago, about how like summer feels like winter for me, because I just kind of like shut down. But like I'm looking, I don't know if y'all can see that, but I'm looking at my chart on the Chani app, and my 12th house, I guess, is in Leo, and my first house is in Virgo, which is like,
Now,
let's see,
or
and
yeah.
going into
So I think your New Year's
Libra
even
season.
slightly before mine, because I think
Yeah.
I'm the one right after you. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're basically like come late August into early September is probably when
Yeah.
you start to feel that. And that's so funny, because it's so aligned. And so many people I've talked to about this after learning about it from Babs, they're like, yeah, that's so spot on when they look up their chart about their own like cycles. And it's just interesting when you start to think like fucking time and dates and everything, the calendar, it's all so arbitrary.
Yeah.
And so, like, what if we just say, I get to define it for myself? And if I just, instead of fighting against it, embrace, like, no, this is my new year. Like, my new year starts in October. Yours starts in September. Like, and what if I start to think about my planning in that way? And what does that change? And it was really, I love the idea of kind of taking some amount of control and just saying, like, okay, my year starts in October. Yours might start in January. Mine starts in October. Right. So my Q2 is starting in February, like where I'm already ahead of you. And
Yeah.
also then when you're in your winter break in December, I'm fully going, but don't expect me to be energized when you're like feeling, your middle of the year is like my end of the year. So just
Yeah.
know, you know what I mean? I don't know. There's something to saying I get to decide for myself what time means to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. 100%. And so that's interesting. I'm
Yeah,
going to have to look more into that.
you should, because it sounds like this is Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year.
Your new year has already started. Mine's about to, and I can feel that, like, where I'm starting to get excited about change and planning and all of that. And hopefully I won't be sick. My husband walked into my office the other day, sat down at my desk because I was sitting in my recliner because I've been sick. And he looked around and then he said to me, "Do you remember when you were a neat freak?" And then he laughed and left. I was like,
That's
yeah.
not passive aggressive at all.
No, well, luckily I knew he wasn't being a dick about it, like, it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
funny, and I was like, yeah. Not subtle hint taken, my
Yeah.
office is trash, I'm like, but
So's mine.
I feel like the new year part of it though too is I usually start to feel this like, okay, I wanna get things like, I will probably do a massive, and I have been starting to feel it where I'm like, I wanna clean my desk. I need a clean surface to start the new year in, even though it's, October. So, yeah, that was a sign to me too, where I was like, yeah, by the end of summer, I'm just like, I've been so holed up, and like, I get seasonal affective disorder in the summer, not the winter.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm the
Do
same
you too?
way. Yeah. I fucking hate summer.
I hate it too, so much.
The only good thing about summer is like when I can be in the water. But
Yeah.
even that is like very temporary.
Exactly. Like that is nice, but the water has to be right, and it rarely
Mm-hmm.
is. So
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, where do you go? Like if I had my own pool that I could temperature control, that would probably make a big difference. But like
Yeah.
my neighborhood pool, I don't want to be social while I'm at the pool. Like
Yeah.
it's supposed to be my time
Yeah.
to be zen, baby, and then I'm having to talk, and like half the time the pool's too damn hot, and the other half the time it's too damn cold.
Cold. Yep. Yep.
Wait a minute, are you a water sign?
No, but I'm a water moon.
Ah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
a
a
water sign.
Pisces
I love
moon.
water too. So are you ocean versus mountains then?
I don't know. I think I like both equally.
I like them both
I
too.
definitely have a lot of earth in my chart.
Mm.
So I do love like mountains, like
But if you could only
gardens, like
pick
things
one to
like that.
live, if you could have your dream house built, would it be built in the mountains or on the ocean?
Don't make me
You
choose.
have to.
Don't make
It's
me
Sophie's choice.
choose.
Well, I would choose the ocean. I love the mountains too. I do. And actually, the older I get, I think the more I'm inclined to move towards the mountains because of the cooler nature of it than the water. But on the whole, like for me, the ocean feels like church.
Mm,
You know what I mean? It
yeah.
gives me that level of, and I love the mountains, but I don't know, there's something about the mountains that just don't quite give me don't put me in the same zen state. Although,
Mm,
I don't know, as I think about it,
yeah.
that may not be true.
Yeah. Can I have a mountainous area with a body of water close
So
by?
you want to be like Tahoe or something where you could be
Yeah.
in the mountains, but then within 2 hours be at the ocean. California is perfect for you
I know. Too
until it
bad it's
falls
too
into the
fucking
water.
expensive.
Yeah, right? I know.
Who can afford to live there? Not many people.
Who could afford to live anywhere right
That's
now?
true.
Like, not to get, I don't know, because this is a grab bag episode, so we don't have to get super political, or we can. But like, the fucking cost of living is so out of control. My son, who is 9 and has no understanding of money, really, I mean, we're starting to help him learn about some of that, but
Mm-hmm.
he opened a bag of chips yesterday and he was like, it's half air. And I said, welcome to it, love. This is how
Yeah.
they act as if they're giving you, look at this big bag of chips that
Yeah.
you're getting for $4. Half of it's air. And I'm like, in the past, that would have been more chips, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it would have been. And now that's how they're trying to convince us that no, we're not really
Yeah.
paying more money. We're paying the same money, but we're
We're
getting a
just
whole,
getting less. Yeah.
right. Either the package has gotten smaller and it's still supposed to look the same, so our eyes don't register that
Yeah.
it's smaller and we're getting less. And I've seen some TikToks about that, of comparing size of packaging literally over just the last few months. But then also things like just how much comes in the containers
Yeah.
now versus in the past. That's the only way they can keep prices remotely similar. I say the only. Also, the corporations like Frito-Lay's and whoever that are making these things, I have a feeling their CEOs are making billions or millions.
Yeah.
They could
Yeah.
easily, it's corporate
Yeah.
greed. I
Yeah.
get the prices are also like the chain goes up, and if the price of wheat goes up, then the chips eventually have to go up, right? And all of that. I get that. And what never changes is how much they're
Yeah.
paying their
Yeah.
CEOs and executives,
Yeah.
right? That
And
doesn't seem to.
bonuses and incentives and all of that. Yeah. So yeah, I remember that moment when you were a kid and you first look into the bag and you realize, oh wait, this isn't what happened here.
I'm
It's
getting
like all of a
screwed,
sudden your innocence is shattered
right?
and the harsh reality of the world is like in
Yeah.
your face.
Happened for my son yesterday, where I was like, yep, that's it. You
It's
figured
a
it out. Like,
milestone.
you're on to them. You have figured out what they're doing to us. So he was like not too happy about that. And I'm like, yeah,
Marxist awakening.
I know. Well, welcome to capitalism, kid. I hate to break it to you. I don't know if you happened to get a chance. I sent you a video on Threads. I don't know if you got a
I
chance to look
did
at it.
see that this morning.
Well, the only reason because it kind of reminds me of talking about CEOs and corporate fat cats. And, I don't know a lot about Westmore, but you're in Maryland. I'd love to know what you think of Westmore. So
Mhm.
I will post a link to this video if I can find it. I should be able to since I sent it to you. But it's a group of people. What I loved is it felt like John Lewis get into good trouble. Like it felt like when people talk
Yeah.
about what should we do now, like what's the activism that makes sense? If we're not marching every day, what should we be doing? And this video felt like a great example of that. If you can be
Hmm.
in rooms and speak truth to power, and this is what
Yeah.
these people did. They showed up at some fancy luncheon. They looked like they all had seats, so they had either purchased their way in or had been invited in. They were all sitting and at
Yeah.
this meal. And Westmore and Glenn Youngkin, who's a Republican from Virginia, Wes Moore, who's obviously the mayor of Maryland or governor of Maryland and where you live, and then some rich fat cat billionaire who's in like in energy business.
Fossil fuels, all that.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what the point of the whole luncheon was. Probably a whole lot of like sucking each other off and talking about how great we all are and how we're improving the world. But one by one, all these different activists got up and were like cheersing the people on stage and talking about like how they're all taking money from this corporate fat cat from, to basically overlook real problems of climate change, including, obviously Glenn Young can I expect it from. Wes Moore is someone who from afar and like the little I've heard of him seems pretty cool. And like, I know he's had been considering a run for president. I now hear maybe he won't, maybe he's seeking re-election as governor instead. But he apparently they were pointing to some specific issues in Maryland where, I guess runoff and other things were causing major issues in the lives of Black folks in Maryland and their health. Meanwhile, Moore is also taking money and attending these events with these people who are polluting the world. And so I loved watching this form of activism of these people saying we can get in the room, and most of them were white men, which I want to see more of that. You have that privilege and that ability to be in the room.
Fucking use it. Yeah.
Yeah. And they actually used it in a way that was sort of funny so they could get on social media to be seen by more people than just the people in the room, which is also important. And they were calling them out specifically on these things. Yeah. And I love the fact that it showcased, don't give me this idea that the two parties are all that different, when in fact they're all paid for and sponsored by these same people doing the similar harm in their communities, right? So I thought it was, and then also just talking about billionaires getting richer. So anyway, I thought it was really interesting. You got a chance to watch it. What did you think?
Yeah, no, I loved it. To be quite honest, I don't know much about Wes Moore. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've been in Maryland. This is embarrassing to say, but going on 3 years now, and I just have not really dug into the politics here.
I get it.
For various reasons. But the little that I do know about Wes Moore, right? Like I know he stood up to Trump trying to send the National Guard here to Baltimore. And so like, because that was on the news recently, right? And so what's ironic about this whole like climate stuff is, well, first let me say, I don't know that I've said this before on the podcast, I don't know that I've ever lived somewhere where the racial disparities are as obvious as they are here in Maryland.
And you're in Baltimore.
And I'm in Baltimore
because I know there's probably differences between Baltimore and more rural Maryland, I would assume.
Well, yeah. And that's
part of what you're saying.
Also part of what I'm getting at is that like when you go to like, once you step outside of Baltimore City, like obviously within Baltimore City, the racial disparity is very clear. It's incredibly clear to the point where like certain streets or roads deliberately end before you can get to like the nice part.
Okay, so St. Louis and Baltimore, I think, are probably so similar because it's exactly the same here. That's really interesting. I'd love to hear that compared to Atlanta, though, because I'm assuming you've lived in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Where else have you been? Like, was LA?
I've lived in New York.
Okay, which is a different
Southwest.
I feel like New York's a different breed, but maybe I'm wrong. But I feel like it's very different than almost every other U.S. city, and it's the way diversity works and functions there. I could be wrong, but I feel like it is.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about Atlanta as a comparison to Atlanta, what I think we both experienced in Baltimore and St. Louis. And I'm curious because everything I know of Atlanta, I haven't spent a lot of time there, so this is going to be the outsider's view, is that it's almost like what we're talking about, but kind of in reverse, where Atlanta is almost like this mecca for Black folks in America, where it's a Black-centered city versus where like wealth is in, I feel like there's a lot more wealth in the hands of Black people in Atlanta. Yeah. And there's a lot more wealthy neighborhoods of Black folks in Atlanta. I don't know what like the inner city looks like compared to like St. Louis or Baltimore, but it feels like almost a different experience completely. Like it flips it all on its head in a way. Is my outsider perspective even remotely on?
It is. I think it is to a certain extent. I think that's definitely the image that Atlanta likes to portray, but there's obviously a lot more complexity to it than that. I think
Are you trying to tell me there's
historically
nuance, Taina? What's that?
it's messy. What?
Gross. Why
I
can't it
think
just be a binary?
I think historically Atlanta has always been there's a lot of redlining in Atlanta, the way that the counties are set up for voting purposes, right? And I think that's been a historical problem in Atlanta. That the citizens, like the residents of Atlanta, and some politicians have tried to address over, the past several
Stacey
decades.
Abrams.
Yeah.
Name one.
Yeah. Yeah. And so Atlanta has something called NPUs, which are neighborhood planning units that were created, I think, in the late 70s or early 80s of the 90s. It's weird that I have to clarify that. But basically, the city was divided up into these using the alphabet, except for the letter U, into because they're called NPU. So you can't have an NPUU because that's confusing.
But you can have an NPU?
Yes.
Or an NPP?
Yes.
But not an NPU.
Yes, but not a UU. Yeah.
Okay.
So
just making sure it made sense.
Right. So the city was divided up into these like neighborhood planning units that were created to give the residents of each of those neighborhoods a voice in how policies are created and and changes are made. And so it started out as like this really great idea. And over time, it just kind of fizzled out. And actually, I used to work at a nonprofit when I lived in Atlanta, the Center for Civic Innovation. And so one of the goals or one of the projects that part of the team worked on was like helping to revitalize the NPUs to just kind of give the residents of Atlanta a better voice, right? To help them get the resources that they need to be heard better. Because as you can imagine, the wealthier neighborhoods, the wealthier the neighborhood was, like the more pull they had. So it started out as a great idea, but then it kind of just like recreated wealth disparities, right? Like it just kind of perpetuated that in a way. Baltimore City historically has been a really Black city. Like Baltimore is known as a Black city.
I've watched The Wire, Taina. I know.
I've never watched The Wire.
The Wire is so good. It blows my mind you haven't watched it. I've seen it all the way through at least twice. And my husband and I were just talking the other day about starting it again.
Yeah.
So good.
I've never seen it. A lot of people are like, you should have watched it before you moved.
I would have told you a lot.
But then there's also Johns Hopkins here, right? Actually, there's actually a lot of colleges and universities here in Baltimore, a lot more than I was aware of. There's Morgan State, which is a historically Black college university. There's Towson University. There's Loyola. There's a few others. And so with that, actually, most especially with an institution like Johns Hopkins, right, that attracts a certain type of not just staff and professor, but a certain type of student,
and
right?
Clientele, yeah.
And clientele, they have the highest number of government contracts, I think, than any other college or university. And so because of the proximity to DC, right? And because of the history of Hopkins in research, especially like science research, medical research, engineering research, et cetera. And so you would think, that kind of notoriety and wealth in the sense of not just money, but like would be visible throughout the entire city, but that's not the case at all. The area closest to university, like I remember when we first came to visit, I went for a walk. We stayed at a hotel right across the street from the university. And then one day I went for a walk and there was a house for sale. And I had heard that Baltimore was pretty affordable place to live. And so this was right before we moved. And I was like, oh, let me find out how much this house is, right? Because we had been thinking even then that eventually we would buy a home. And I was like, it'd be nice to be close to university. That house was on sale for over $1 million. And like 2 blocks away, there are townhomes that are like $140,000, $220,000.
I'll bet it was in a gated area.
No, and that's the thing. It's not gated.
Because St. Louis, there's lots of that same thing where it's like there's the lines and everyone in the city knows.
Yeah.
We all know where the mythical lines are, right? Like
Yeah.
there's no, hey, you don't go past here, except that we all know it.
Yeah.
And yeah, you'll have $1 million home 2 blocks away from something
Yeah.
that's all boarded up, and you could probably get for $5,000 if you paid the city. They'd probably give it to you for free if you take it off their hands. And a lot of that is like gated off streets, blocked off streets, or gated communities.
Yeah.
And the same, I mean, I spent a very little time in Baltimore, but I did go to the city. And I remember thinking like it was so interesting because like there's a beautiful harbor there with a great aquarium, and like there's some cool stuff. And I think there's some pretty good food in Baltimore. But yeah, like just having a very limited view, it was amazing how you could see. It was very clear where it's like, don't go there. That's
Mm-hmm.
not safe. Watch out.
Yeah.
And in the same way that, but like in a more serious tone than like where people sometimes in New York will be like, oh, you shouldn't be out at night as a woman. And it's like, okay, I'll be fine. Right. And Baltimore was like, no, take it seriously. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that kind of thing where, and it's, I mean, obviously St. Louis, I can't say anything different. We're the murder capital of the US. Right. So like St. Louis has definitely got crime issues. And I think a lot of that is based on class and segregation and deprivation of access to resources that happens with those kinds of class disparities that it sounds like Baltimore also has.
Yeah, 100%. There's always events down at the harbor, but every time there's an event, like later on, like that night on the news, it's like there was a shooting at the harbor or something. And it's
Right, you
like,
got to be out of there before dark, right?
right. And so, and I don't feel afraid in New York. I don't feel afraid anywhere else. I feel afraid here.
There are parts of St. Louis where I feel afraid too. And I wrestle with that as a white woman, the like, am I overreacting? Is this one of those crossing the street because I see a black man kind of moments, or is this a real threat? Right. And I've always had to wrestle with those issues as a white woman in particular, where I'm like, how much of this is it because it's a man versus because it's a black man? Right. And like, I'm doing those mental gymnastics a lot. And I do that about safety in the city where I'm like, am I overreacting? And I don't want to be that way. But then also, how much of it is real? Because again, we are the murder capital of the US.
Yeah.
Like, and those are tough things to balance out in your head, I think.
Yeah, no, they are. They are. And obviously people are responsible for their choices, but I also see it as a symptom of a lack of resources, lack of equity.
Choosing. I don't think people are choosing to show up and get shot because they wanted to go to an event at the harbor, right? And I think the people who are choosing to shoot are usually, it's desperation. It is sort of what we talked about last week, where it's like, I can either continue to like acquiesce or I could just surrender. And I think for some people, when you have that level of hopelessness, the surrender looks like anarchy, right? It looks like fuck you then, right?
Yeah.
I've never had access to anything. My dad's in prison. I didn't have school books. Like my husband works in a school because St. Louis is so deeply segregated that most of our schools are 99% white or 90% black. My husband works in a school that's 99% black. And he sees the lack of resources and opportunities all the time. I mean, it's what he deals with nonstop as a counselor, and the things he comes home to talk about that these kids are experiencing. When I know good and well as somebody who went to school that was 95% white, that wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. We had different levels of resources, and that is not because there was something fundamentally or inherently different between me and those students, other than our access, our privilege, right? And of course that causes desperation.
Yeah. And that's what it feels like, honestly, here. It feels like a lot of the energy just feels like anarchist energy. Like people are just fed up and are just like, well, fuck it, I'll just do what I have to do to survive, right? And unfortunately that starts at a very young age here. And it's such an interesting place to be. But again, like then you have like $1 million homes, like not just in the city, but as soon as you move into the county, like there's a noticeable difference.
Yeah.
As soon as you move outside of the city into any of the counties, it's very different. The infrastructure itself is nicer. Like the roads are nicer. They're well cared for. Like it's wild. Like it feels so surreal living here.
I really think St. Louis you would come here and you'd feel right at home because it's so fucking similar. It really is. Like the number one question that people ask who grow up in St. Louis, and we're known for this, is people will ask you, where'd you go to high school? So if somebody meets you and they say like, oh, I'm from St. Louis. So am I. Oh, where'd you go to high school? And it seems like an innocent question, but what I've come to realize over time is there's nothing innocent about it because of where we live and because of the incredible segregation here. When you learn where someone went to high school, you know everything you need to know about their privilege. It immediately tells you what your experience is with Black folks, right? Or white folks, depending on what race you are. Like how many people of color you would have even known in your life, how much money you had, you know, what kind of parties you were able to go to, what kind of car you probably drove. Like it told you everything you needed to know about someone. And I just think it says so much about how this place is wired. It is, and that is why, like, we lived previously in Ferguson, where Michael Brown was shot, famously, and we left because I had a 6-month-old, and part of me, again, this is where I did those mental gymnastics. A white woman with a white son in an area where if he'd gone to the schools where we stayed, and had nothing to do with the crime or anything like that, wasn't, although we did hear gunshots more frequently there than we do, 15 miles away here. But I knew the school he was going to go to, he would have been not just a minority, but like an exceptional minority, right? He would have been one of a handful of white people. And because the school where we were there was like 90% Black. And it's not because I don't want him to be around Black folks. It was because I don't think anyone should have to have that experience unless they want to. Like, I think going to a all-girls school, I think if you hold a marginalized identity and you want to be amongst other folks with that marginalized identity, that's a very different situation. But I don't think anyone should be forced into being the only of something in their school. And I wanted him, but the option for me then was not, we could move where I grew up. And then my son would have been in a school where the same thing would have been happening, but to the Black students at the school, right? Where he would have been in the 99% majority. So where we are now, and I'm so thrilled, and I hope it doesn't change, we're in one of the rare areas in St. Louis where all these kind of things meet because of kind of the crossroads of a few highways where we live. And it's a pretty desirable area, but there's also a lot of, like, for whatever reason, it's just this very interesting melting pot part of St. Louis. And so he is one of 45, like his school is 45% white and 30% Black. And the rest, I think, is primarily South Asian, but there's also some degree of Hispanic students too that make up the rest of that. But it's a pretty, he's in one of the most diverse schools in the city and in the state. That's what I wanted for him. I want him to have that experience of getting to be in an environment where he's not the only and he's feeling othered all the time, but also where he's not othering people.
Yeah, other
right?
people, yeah.
And that's hard because not all of us end up with, like, it took privilege to be able to buy this home and to be able to be in this space where we could give him that experience. And honestly, Taina, I take him to school or when he's with his friends and I see his little United Nations group of friends, like, I want to cry because it was not the experience I had growing up at all. And it's just so beautiful. And I just think, like, I can see what it does for him. I know what it does for him as far as his understanding of humanity and of other people. He has one of his best friends is Black, who has 2 moms. He's got another friend who's a girl who's got 2 moms also. He's got, he's seeing it all, right? And I see how he shows up where for him at 9 already, it's just like so many of these questions that people wrestle with. He's like, he just doesn't get it. Exposure therapy, like, it's what we need. But we can't, it's hard because we can't just, I know we've tried things like busing and things to try and manufacture some of that. I don't know what the answer is, but I wish we could figure it out because I could tell you if more young people had the experience he's getting, more white men had the experience he's getting, I think we would be in such a different world. But instead, most of us have the experience of Baltimore and St. Louis and the segregated life.
It's so funny you said the thing about high school because one of my wife's colleagues said the same thing to us when we first moved here.
About where'd you go?
Yeah. People don't ask where you went to college. People ask where you went to high school here in Baltimore.
Telling you, because it tells you everything, right?
Yeah.
Because the high school it's only a limited geography. Like anyone would at any college, right? But high school, you have to live within a certain parameters. And by God, if you went to a private school, well, that tells me a whole new set of information.
A whole lot. Yeah. And, and a lot of the white people here will put their kids in, the private Catholic schools.
Same here. Yeah.
You know what's interesting, or not interesting, but fucking pisses me off is like we got, and I think I mentioned this to you before, but we got a letter from the the county or the state, I don't know who, some governing entity, about maybe 6 months ago about our pipes, right? That we shouldn't drink the water, the tap water, because they don't know what our pipes are made out of
Lead.
an unknown material. They said an unknown material or a mysterious material, whatever. And
Why would
now,
you want to hear?
right. And now we're getting letters from the county that are saying, we've partnered with this company in case something happens to your pipes or your sewer. For $11 a month, you can buy this like insurance that will cover any kind of damage or unexpected emergency with your pipes or whatever. And we started to notice like this didn't happen when we first bought the place and we moved in, but it's been like the past few months, like the water is turning our toilet bowl red. And that is
Ours
new.
too.
What is that?
Well, I always thought it was hard water, whatever they call hard water, and I don't really know what that means. Yeah, I don't know. But similarly, my kids' school, which is, half a mile, so it's all the same pipes, we got a notice about they're testing lead in the water in all of the schools. Well, St. Louis has a very well-known history of radioactive issues dating
Mm-hmm.
back to war times. The school that my husband went to is very famously next to like a radioactive waste dump site or whatever. So we used to make
Good.
fun of those kids saying that they would glow in the dark. And now where he teaches, even far more like horrible because there's this landfill and there's been runoff and the school's there. And of course, where he's at, again, it's predominantly black, very predominantly black
Mm-hmm.
area. They have had massive issues with the water causing, and no surprise, all these people are discovering
Yeah.
cancers and all sorts of things. Well, we're not that far from any of this stuff. We're not that far from a landfill. And so anyway, they're testing the waters, I think, in all of St. Louis because Josh Hawley came to our rescue, which is mind boggling because the man's an idiot. But he has been, I will give him the credit, he has been fighting around this particular issue around the water quality. And they did a similar thing saying like, well, there was elevated levels of lead in your son's school at one like faucet we tried, but not at this other like water fountain that the kids use. But then we had an independent agency come in and now they say it's okay. And I'm like, I don't know what to make of all this information other than I continue to send them water every day. But then I
Mm-hmm.
think half the time that's from my tap and my tap is half a mile from those taps.
Yeah.
It's probably
Yeah.
the same shit. I need to probably doing more water filtration, but like I'm also like I should be able. We should live in a world where we could drink the fucking tap water and not
Yeah.
have to have
Yeah.
expensive contraptions or time spent trying to
Yeah.
figure it all. Like I shouldn't have to figure all that out, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't know. I feel like
Like
you should
this.
be able to trust the water in your home.
Right. Right. Like, and I don't need to be able to like drink it every day, but like, why are you trying to
Shower
sell
it.
me something
Right.
that's going to help me fix my pipes when it's your fucking job to make sure that the pipes work in the first place?
Right. Exactly. Or if it's going to take $11 more to make drinking water and bathing water and whatever safe, then just do it and make that the new rate. Don't opt in because all that you're showing then is like, well, we'll take care of you if you're privileged.
Yeah.
Like, eat the cost. Get a government grant to eat the cost. The government should be paying for that. If they can't, then spread it across everyone and go into the county. Maybe the people who don't need that treatment service, because they could also be paying the new rate and everyone pays the new rate
Yeah.
so that everyone can have access. Like the same thing you were talking about with Atlanta. It's like the stuff that drives me batty, and this is not my place to like, I'm not trying to cast aspersions here, but it
Mhm.
is frustrating because when you think of like Atlanta in my mind and what the image that they do project is kind of this black Mecca, right? Like where Black people can come and feel safe and comfortable and an environment where like it feels like it's for us, by us, and all of
Mhm.
that, right? And like our wealth is allowed to prosper, and I'm here for all of that. But what upsets me is when you talk about, and then what happens? The same systems replicate themselves, right? Because it's not about who's playing it's not the people who are in charge of the system, it's the system is the
Yeah.
problem, right? So it's the same thing you see in girl bossing, where you can take women, put them in charge, and suddenly, yeah, they're in charge, yeah, now the money has changed hands, But the same systems continue to happen where you still are extracting from other people. And that's not the fucking point. I don't want to have neighborhoods that are like, yes, the right people are in control now. But the whole point is there shouldn't be about control. And that's what the problem is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so aggravating.
It is.
But you've been talking about maybe moving back there, right?
Yeah. I mean, because all of our people are there, you know?
If you're
All
going to have
of
to
our
be in
people are
shit
there.
anyway, you might as well be in shit with people you love.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with that.
And, Maryland is a blue state, but it's the reddest blue state I've ever been in.
I think that's the truth of most blue states, though, isn't it? Because blue states are blue because of a few large cities. I mean, California is blue because of parts of LA and all of San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
It's parts of San Diego. That's the same for
Yeah.
Baltimore. I
Yeah.
mean, most other than but even people who live in, I always thought of maybe Washington and Oregon being the most kind of or Vermont. But even people I've talked to there, it's the same thing. It's the big populous areas that make the difference. And if it weren't for those, they wouldn't. So Georgia is blue, but Atlanta is Georgia is
red.
purple, red, becoming purple because Atlanta continues to grow and is so blue that it's allowing it to become a little more purple. So ultimately, I think if you're living in a city, it does, to some degree, it matters what state you're in because it does affect, here in Missouri, I live in a blue dot inside of this red state, but also Missouri's bottom for education, bottom for health, and that is the biggest difference is those blue states tend to be at the top of those things and the red states don't.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And for all of the nuance of Atlanta and this within the, bigger context of the state of Georgia, it does project an image of Black wealth and abundance.
Excellence.
Black excellence. Yeah. But there is a part of it that's true.
I'm sure.
That's part of the reality. But that's just not the whole reality. And so it does feel like a really just kind of nexus of Black creativity and, Black excellence and just this spirit of resistance, right? I mean, John Lewis was there, we've got Stacey Abrams, there's so much happening in Atlanta, just all the time, that there's just this energy there that I haven't
Isn't
felt
Tyler
anywhere
Perry
else.
there?
Yes.
I'm not saying we love Tyler Perry, but speaking of the creativity part, there's a lot he has done, as much as there's a lot I don't like about Tyler Perry, he has done a lot to bring Hollywood, to bring creative, the film industry into that part of the world as well I think a lot of that has to do with him and him putting his own wealth into that. I'm also to make more wealth. So I have plenty of issues, but I do get that feeling from there. And I can understand, I would understand the appeal, I think, particularly if I were Black, to say, again, if I have to if I have to be in these systems, no matter where I am, I would rather at least be in the system surrounded by people who look like me, who share my experience, who we can, just by looking at each other, there is a shared understanding of what's happening in the moment. And the same way I would rather, that's where I also am saying, I want my son as a white man, a potential eventual white man, to be in the most diverse experience he can have. But I also understand totally get the desire to be I would love to go to a women's college or to live in a women's commune where there's no fucking men, where I can just, again, look at a woman and we just know right away, oh, there's that man on his shit again. We get it, there is that I fully understand. So I could see the appeal of that big time to say I'd like to live there. That's why I would love a city that was just women. Can we make that happen?
A separatist village.
The older I get, separate but equal. No, I don't think that's quite it. But there's this, I don't know. If I had to redo my life, I think I would have gone to a women's college. You did, right?
I did. Yeah. I did. Yeah. And we, I'll call it a women's college historically, because we had some trans students.
Yeah.
And there are still some trans students who
enroll. And that's totally fair. I mean, trans women are women, but non-binary students and stuff.
Yeah.
And I do think what a women's college means in the last few years they've been grappling with that for themselves. So.
Yeah, for sure. But when I say trans, I mean trans masculine students who were assigned female at birth and then
yes, because I know many schools are dealing with that.
Yeah.
Do we allow those folks in or not? What does that look like?
Yeah. And so, and then, just decided to transition to an identity.
Well, to be clear, I would like to live in a city that was just not with no cis men.
It was one of the best experiences of my life.
I bet.
It completely
missed out.
Yeah.
I do feel that. Like, I do feel like I missed out. I've never had that experience because I basically went from home to being married. There was almost no, like, I lived with my mom and then I lived with my boyfriend who became my husband. Like, I never had that experience of having a female roommate.
Yeah.
Of living at like a women's college. Like, I've never had that sisterhood sort of experience. And I think it has to be amazing. Like, I'm getting it a little bit now virtually but there's something about that I think feels magical.
Yeah. And when I went, I was in my 30s. I was already a lot
Really?
older.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because I was a return to college student. So I was a lot older than almost everybody else on campus. That was interesting. But I also felt like it was kind of like a rebirth for me, like, because when I first went to college, I went to community college and then I took a break. So when I went back and I went to Agnes Scott, just outside of Atlanta, which I have every institution has their issues, right? No institution is perfect. Exactly. But I felt like I was had an opportunity to just kind of just be in college for the first time. And I didn't live on campus, so I didn't get that experience. But I made some amazing friends that I still keep in touch with occasionally, and had amazing professors who just didn't treat me like nobody really treated me different because I was older. It was right as I was leaving my religious bubble. So there was a lot of deconstructing that I was doing at that time.
It's a great place to do it, though, in a women's
It was
college.
amazing.
Holy
it was
shit.
the perfect environment for me at that time because I was deconstructing all of my religious trauma. I was coming into my own identity, my own sexuality. And so it was just like the perfect environment. Like, I will always recommend a women's college for a high school junior or senior who is about to graduate and is not a cis hetero male.
I wished my nieces had gone. I tried. They both went to big state schools, and good for them, and they've had great experiences. But I am always like, I try not to project too much because I want to be like, no, go to a women's college, then go to Europe, and then date strategically, and like all the things I didn't do. But okay. I just realized how long we've been talking. I love a grab bag episode because it goes forever, but it also can just meander a little too long. So we should probably see ourselves out before people are like, is this going anywhere?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not going anywhere. We're just yapping today. So
yeah. Well, I would like to leave with speaking of Atlanta and John Lewis and making good trouble. I'm going to leave again. I'm going to put the video that I mentioned in the chat or in the show notes, and I want people to watch it and think about, like, what is my little micro form of rebellion today? And that, like, how could I speak truth to power today? What does it look like? Yeah. And again, it could just look like showing up on social media, but it could be going to your PTO meeting. Right. And advocating for the kids who don't have good drinking water. It could look like
or who need new textbooks.
Exactly. So, like, just trying to think, like, I think we can often feel powerless. I know I do at these times. I often feel so powerless. And seeing a video like that's not about, and again, I'm not getting invitations into those same rooms. So that I can't do that, but I can see that and I can say, that's right. I have my moments too where I can use my voice and speak up. And that continues to be resistance and part of what we are able to do to fight now. So
yeah. Use your privilege to speak truth to power.
Yeah. The more privilege you have, the more you should be using it. And if you're not, that's something to sit with and explore. Why not? And how can you change that? All right. Well, it was lovely to see you. Hopefully next week I will sound normal.
I hope so too. I hope you feel better.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening to Messy Liberation.
Will you please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen?
I know people say that all the time. And if you're like me, often you just go on to the next podcast. But truly, taking that moment to do that will really help us reach a wider audience.
Thank you so much for your support and for listening today.
Until next time.